Some comments, I really do. I like some comments, don't care about you. I like some comments.
This somewhat unfamiliar looking dastardly and Muttley to kick us off this time then. And seeing as how I've got a memory like an award-winning sieve, I took one quick look at the cover on this, leapt on me Hanna-Barbera high horse, and were briefly repulsed by the very idea, by the bloody nerve of anyone even thinking aught like this might not be a total affront on aught that purports to be right and good. But then I remembered the Boss Snagglepuss thing I went through a few months back, of similar ilk, and had to have a quick word with myself regarding me sanctimonious nonsense. A somewhat heated inner debate that culminated in me telling me to shut my big fat trap unless I wanted some. Turns out I did not want some. I do need to cover that on here though. I were right to pull myself up on that, if naught else. Meanwhile, back to the comic though, and I reckon it's fair to say if any of us were to have the somewhat harebrained idea of resetting Dast and Mutt to current day doings, then pretty much the only thing we could do really would be to anthropomorphise the snickering hound into a fighter pilot who is a somewhat radiation-infused amalgamation of Dick's old flying chum Mutt and Canine. It'd be the only thing to do, I said. Other cats in this book clearly aren't as hip to such a straightforward notion though, and get to tumbling D&M's game via the old Loudhailer shooting massive cartoon bullets scenario. Absolute classic example of that panological mainstay which gets played for existential giggles, while the cartoon cascading craft keeps on fartooning round gaff, leaving all kinds of familiar looking Jabba Georgetsome in its wake, and folks start to tweaking left, right and middle, while the penny really starts to drop with our dastardly duo, and they go out looking for whatever it is that gone done the dirty. I mean, I'm not going to spoil it, man, am I? No, I am not. So I'll leave it there. Really good little yarn gets spun here though. I will say that. We a nice sideline in considerate allegory for them unwilling to take such things at face value. Stands up either way for me though, man. And it's worth a gander. For sure. Yeah, I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with Dennis the Menace, I've got to say. Not really love-hate, more kinda meh, perhaps. As I've talked about on here before, Dennis were the cover star of the first comic I ever bought, going back 40 years, man, and has loomed fair heavy ever since. But I were never really that fussed about what he were up to, and only read back and front covers at Beano once I'd gone through the insides a couple of times, digging on the half dozen or so strips inside that I favoured more. I mean, of course, the 5-year-old me couldn't help but admire how his faithful dog were willingly propelled like a canine cannonball by his stripy jumpered master at Walter and the Softies, the fair focus of Dennis's weekly vitriol. or how the masterly menace procured himself a prize-winning poker during Rash's origin, in which he threateningly forced Walter and the softies to cut short the wholesome games in order to ferry his new pet about. But I think beyond Dennis's now well-established, frankly unquestionable propensity for bullying behaviour, this also showed him to be devoid of morals regarding his loyal companions and friends. Although we also established that Dennis was the recipient of physical abuse from his tyrannical end-of-tether old man, who dished out sadistic beatings on an episodic basis. So while some might argue how our mop-headed protagonist's menacing behaviour is merely a product of his volatile home environment, Dennis has also shown, as is the case with most bullies, to be a coward when faced with bigger, more formidable foes, as we see with Masher McTurk here. And he also gets his just desserts from less likely sources too. But his mum has seen far too many war wounds to give Dennis the attention he truly craves. And I think this was my main problem with it, really. It was too deep and fraught with various Freudian undertones for me 5-year-old noggin to appropriately grasp. Never mind. Descender then last won this one, and I think we've already fairly established that I dig on Jeff Lemire. Lemire, is it? Lemire? Lemire. But as with many Fornim fanboys, I don't like to think of myself as another Fornim fanboy, gushing over output without a constructive objective word in my love-struck noggin. So as out of all this stuff I've clocked out in the wild, this looked like it'd be least up my street. I figured I'd give it a do, because I'm a bit funny like that. This kicks off with some fine Day the Earth Stood Still vibes, the riled residents tweaking and responding with fear and hostility to stuff they know naught about, as per. And next news, some kid wakes up on his Todd after a lengthy kip to see that things have changed somewhat since he last opened his eyes, though with the help of his trusty robot companion, he starts trying to suss out what might be what. As we all Lemire stuff, there's a lot more being said here than simply the words on the pages, and its themes of infighting and nonsensical discrimination and hatred certainly ring a few bells in contemporary society. And it's clear that even though yon lad seems to be in unfeasibly good spirits, all things considered, perhaps due to a heady mixture of youthful exuberance and eternal optimism in the face of overpowering adversity, but no matter how shiny he thinks his shoes are, it seems that he's going to have his work cut out nonetheless. Cut then to and fro from Backstoriesville, as we get a wider angle on what's what, with yon likeable lad, who it pans out can stick up for himself if he needs to, and it comes down to a bit of A lads A. Answers are sought out on all sides, but as certain facts start to emerge, as per, the established differences are less to do with who might be right and who might be wrong, rather due to different views on the same thing, and the lazy belief that personal perspectives equal unquestionable fact. Spoiler here, they don't. Now, obviously, in a title whose entire story arc spans so many issues, There's going to be twists and turns and ups and downs and speeding all over. Folks drop in, folks drop out along the way, but they never seem surplus or shoehorned in, man. Lemire Lemire seems to flesh out his bit part supporting players just as much as his primary protagonists, which adds level on level in terms of feasibility, even in what is ostensibly a sci-fi yarn in lots of ways. These aren't just yarns that he's spinning, no man. These are entire realities that we're stepping into, and this is about aspiration, it's about subservience, culpability, equality, revolution, science, nature. It's about the lot, man. The entire freaking caboodle. But I reckon the main thing about Descender as an entire work, and it does work, is that it makes you think, man. About all sorts. Really think, I mean. Or it should do. Assuming that you're not one of these cocksure, cock-end, know-it-alls who spoil everything. You know, them. It made me think, any road. And they don't like that, do they? So I've heard. So give it a do for that reason, if for naught else, and stick one right in the self-righteous, supercilious kisses. Absolute belter is this.